Intervals are a fundamental tool to training. We use them to drive specific adaptations, improve quality, and improve the effectiveness of workouts. Intervals also happen to be one of the most overcomplicated and misunderstood sections when it comes to cycling training. So today we're going to break it down, make it understandable, and how to make sure you're getting the most out of your training. When it comes to training, the first question should always be, what is the goal of your training? Now this is fundamental to understanding what type of training you should be doing, how much you should be doing, and how you should be structuring your life around it. If the goal of your training is to bring you into the Tour de France, you're obviously going to have a different training plan than somebody who's just looking to finish their first Gran Fondo. So what I like to start out with is the big picture. And the big picture is remembering that training is a tool to improve your performance, and that training must be specific for desired outcomes. If you go out and just ride however you want every day, you're probably not going to get the desired outcomes. Training is a dose-response relationship, meaning that your body responds to the stimulus you give it. The stimulus in this case being the exercise itself. If you go out and you train really hard every day, your body's going to adapt to that training. Now the type of stimulus you give your body is the important part. So the first thing I like to do is pick a goal. This helps narrow down your focus a bit, and instead of saying, I just want to get faster, you start assessing what will actually make you faster. So generally, people tend to want to improve their FTP, their VO2 max, their aerobic system, sprints, or their endurance. There's a lot of different things you can improve, of course, but this is just a list of a few. So in your head right now, I'd start making a plan, right? What's my big picture? What am I training for? Why do I like training? And then you can narrow it down a little bit more. What kind of goal do I want to focus on? Do I want to get faster? Do I want to increase my watts? Do I want to work on my time trial? Do I want to work on hill climbs? All these things are adjustable and they change the way that you should be doing training. The next thing I like to do is refine the goal a bit. So asking why. This helps remove kind of blanket statements like, I just want to get faster. It makes you target the specific systems that you need to work on. So if your goal is to improve FTP, you should be asking yourself, well, what will a higher FTP actually get me? Is it going to help me finish my race? Is it going to help me achieve a better finish? Or is it just going to be a number that I'm going to brag about on Strava? Does focusing on sprint training when you're doing a 6-hour marathon at the end of the year really make sense? Is that the right training that you should be doing? You should be asking yourself these types of questions. And of course, you should be asking, will it benefit my performance? You can try and improve your VO2 max as much as you'd like, but if you don't have the race skills or tactical performance, will it really help you? And should you be focusing that time instead on something more beneficial? And the final question is, do you know how to train that? Now, we're lucky in this age. Google is accessible, ChatGPT is accessible, and you can get a lot of helpful tips on how to do specific types of training. You can also get a coach who will hopefully help you out with structuring these workouts to help you meet your goals. I like to go through this little list and make sure that the training will actually benefit my goals. The next question is, how do you get there, right? What does the training actually look like? And this is where the disconnect starts to show itself. A lot of people might know what their goals are, and they might think they know what they need to work on, but they don't know how to do it. So what type of training do you need to do? How are you going to structure this training? And at the end of the day, it's really about what metabolic systems you're looking to improve. Now, I showed you how it can be helpful to go from big picture to specific outcomes, and that's actually a really popular way of looking at training. Most coaches tend to look at training like this. You have the macro cycle, so your big plan, right? What is the yearly goal? What's the overall goal for the season? I like to call this the big picture. Then you have the mesocycle, which is a little bit more focused. I'd say it's more month to month. So what does the training look like for that month? What does the training look like for this block of training? And then you have your microcycle. So this is your day-to-day structure. What do the actual workouts look like and how do you position them throughout the week? And then you have the workouts themselves, the individual workouts down here. What do the workouts look like? How many reps? How many sets? You slowly get more and more specific until you end up with today's workouts. So start with the big picture, the macro cycle. What's a main goal for this year? What do you want to focus on? Under the big picture, you have the mesocycles. This is where you typically see base block 1, base block 2, a build, some intensity, and then peaking to perform for a race. This is where you'd structure that kind of stuff in. So still pretty big picture, but just laying out the foundation for kind of how your year is going to go. And then when you get down to microcycles, this is the stuff that can change from day to day. So ideally, you want to lay this out at least a week in advance so you kind of know what's coming and you can structure it effectively. You're not waking up every day and deciding what to do for training. And so what I like to do is anytime I have a question about an individual workout or somebody's microcycle, right? I'm not really sure what to do with their training. I go up a step and I look at what's above. So as a coach, if I'm looking at somebody's training plan and I'm not sure what workout to give them for that day or that week, what I do is I zoom out a little bit and just remember what the overall goal of their year or their season or that block of training is. So for a specific athlete, if they're in the base phase and they're building up a big aerobic engine and I want them to focus on getting a lot of volume and getting a lot of low intensity work, I zoom out, I look at the block that we're in, and I say, okay, the focus is a lot of volume and a lot of low intensity work. And then I can zoom back in and decide what the best workout for that day would be. And then of course you want to look at day to day and make sure you're structuring it correctly so that they get enough recovery and are actually adapting to the stimulus you're giving them. Because each workout is a stimulus. And that's something I really want to hit on here. The most important thing about interval training is that it's quality over quantity. You can do an endless amount of quantity, but the amount of quality you can do is very limited. And it's actually that quality that's a lot more important for driving adaptations. So I want you to remember that you need a specific stimulus to get a specific response. A way I like to think about this is by imagining each workout as a signal. So let's say you go out and you do a threshold interval. So here you have a signal from a threshold workout, right? This is a signal from the workout. It's a very strong signal to your body saying, hey, let's increase maybe the lactate buffering ability, right? How good we are at moving lactate in and out of the muscle and using it as a fuel. So you're sending a very strong signal to your body because you did really good quality intervals, right? Here are your intervals right here. You did, let's say, 4 by 8 minutes at threshold, right? It's very good quality. You're sending a great signal to your body. That signal will get turned into real adaptations. So you'll improve your ability to buffer lactate, and therefore your threshold will go up. But maybe instead of doing high quality intervals and really focusing on hitting your power targets and taking the correct amount of rest and doing the correct amount of work, instead you decide to just go out and ride threshold for as long as you can, right? So this is what that would look like. You know, you kind of start off strong and then you kind of fall off towards the end, right? What kind of signal is that sending to your body? Oh, I rode at kind of threshold for a couple hours and then I didn't feel well and I went to sleep and I didn't really recover, right? It's confusing signal you're sending to your body. Your body's not gonna know what to do with that. So you're not gonna get a great adaptation. One of the most important things to remember is that just because the workout is hard does not mean it was effective or beneficial for your training. Now, I don't want to get too much in the weeds about what type of exact interval you should be doing when, but I want to give you a bigger picture look at all the different types of intervals that you can do and all the options you have available to you to improve your training. Like I said earlier, if you want a specific outcome, you have to do specific training. So let's go through a short list of all the types of different intervals you can do. You have endurance intervals, fat max intervals, tempo, steady state, threshold, and of course you have variety within all of these. There's different ways to do endurance, there's different ways to do tempo, there's different ways to do fat max, and there's different ways to do threshold. And each of those different ways have different benefits related to the type of training that you're looking to do. I don't want to overwhelm you, but there are so many different ways to achieve so many different results with intervals. Right? You can have someone doing 30-30s for VO2 max. You can have another person doing 40-20s. Or you could have the same person doing both. And there's so many different reasons why one might be slightly more beneficial than another. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you are lining up your training with the desired outcome. I want to quickly run you through some of those goals and show you what type of training you should be doing to help you reach them. So if your goal is to improve your FTP, you obviously want to increase your threshold. Now, the things that impact that threshold are your ability to buffer and clear lactate, your VO2 max, your VLA max, and your overall aerobic power. So the type of training you should be doing should reflect those goals. You should be doing threshold work. You should be supporting it with a strong aerobic base. You should also be doing some high intensity work to increase that VO2 max. Now, the way you structure that is up to your schedule and your training and the goals that you're chasing. If your goal was to improve endurance capabilities, so how's your power at the end of a long, hard race, or your ability to sustain a certain power throughout an event, you would obviously be working on something slightly different than someone who just wants to work on their criterium skills or their ability to win a sprint. And once again, I really want to drive home that the main takeaway from this should be that your training has to be specific to your goals. Now, obviously, the same type of training works for a lot of people because a lot of people have the same goals. But just because you see somebody doing a certain style of workouts doesn't mean it's right for you. There's obviously a lot more that you need to know and understand before you can do this effectively. So that's why it can be really beneficial to work with a coach or somebody who understands how to structure training to get you your desired outcomes. So I'll leave you with this: quality over quantity, and make sure the training has purpose. Thanks for watching, and I will be making a lot more videos about the specific types of intervals to reach specific goals and how you should be using them in your training. This is more of a general overview. So I hope it was helpful.